2. Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. It's Monday here right now. You might be listening to this on a different day, but I just checked Netflix right before we started this, and they tell you the top 10 shows on Netflix right now. And the show that we're talking about today is number 2, and this is 2 weekends after its release. This is Netflix's Fit for TV, The Reality of the Biggest Loser, which is a 3-part docuseries, which I highly recommend. I've brought it up a couple of times on the show already, and I think I'm going to continue to have discussions about it because, it's really interesting to look back on pieces of pop culture and then to also remember that there are human lives as a part of this. This was a reality show based on people wanting their dream of losing weight, and this docuseries takes us through kind of the ups and the downs, and it has people that we know and love like Bob Harper in it. We get to meet Dr. Huizenga, who's been a part of like pop culture throughout the decades, in the O.J. Simpson trial, for the love of God. But today we have 2 of the people behind this series, and I'm so excited to have them. They are the CEO and SVP of Boardwalk Pictures. This company has been founded in 2010, but their credits are insane. We're talking Chef's Table, Welcome to Wrexham. We need to talk about Cosby. I mean, all of these things that we've seen, it's just like a list of things that you need to watch or you have watched. So with us today is Andrew Freed and Lana Barkin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Hi, great to be here.
Yeah, that's obviously Andrew who spoke first, and Lana, if you're listening. But if you're watching, you obviously know that. First off, congratulations, you guys, because it really is interesting that I feel like this has moved the needle, which is so hard to do in today's attention economy. Did you know this was going to be something that people were going to be talking about for more than just one weekend?
That is a great first question. Again, thank you so much for having us. We love being able to talk about our show and all of our work. We're proud of it. And we're so thrilled that audiences have not only found this one, but are enjoying it as much as we would have hoped. I think, Lana and I were talking about this morning that, no, I personally, I'll let Lana answer for herself. I could not have anticipated this type of reaction for this particular release. Lana, maybe you have a better answer.
No, I feel similarly. I think, when we were first developing the show, we knew that there was something really, provocative and exciting and meaningful about making a show like this one. So I knew that it was or I hoped that it was going to reach people, but what it's done, so far is just, it's hard to believe.
Well, I mean, can you take the audience through that of how does it work behind the scenes of who comes up with the idea of like, hey guys, remember that show, The Biggest Loser? I've had second thoughts over the years, and this might be great to explore and talk to past contestants and trainers. Who has that idea and how does this come to fruition?
All the projects come from different places, right? We've now, I don't know the exact count, but I think over the last decade, we've done almost 40 projects with Netflix alone, set aside, all the other streamers and networks who we've worked with. And so there's definitely an ongoing dialogue about things that are working for them and things that we find interesting from a development standpoint. And then these projects, often just come from those types of conversations as much as, you sort of hear the Hollywood version of it. And some of the projects come from this too, where you have a deck that you've presented or a big pitch or a bit like sometimes they happen that way, but oftentimes they happen just from organic conversations of people that, you're working with on something or talking to about something you want to work with. For us on this one, like, I think we are often talking about how much the world has changed and the modern lens to look at recent history through, right? As you said in your opening, we need to talk about Cosby, which obviously is a very, dramatic and very severe version of this idea of, wow, it's now current time. And how do we look back and how does it change how we view certain things from recent history? So that was a very different type of project, but I think it did teach us around the offices to always be curious about things that we want to talk about more. Mm-hmm. And the first conversation I think that Lana and I had about this project in particular was, wow, yeah, there definitely was a show, a big hit show that I remember watching, that half of America was watching, where we put people on meat scales.
Yeah.
And I say we because we all did it, right? Like, it's not
Yeah.
3 producers in a room who did that. We all did that. We all watched it. We all tuned in next week to see it. And so just the inception point of that conversation, to say there was a show and we put people on meat scales and called them losers, right?
Yeah.
So let's start there and then meet people, as you're saying, who this was a really important chapter of their lives. However it went, they really wanted to be on the show. Then they were on the show. They lived that chapter and experienced it, and now have lived the years since. So let's talk to those folks.
That was the thing that I found really fascinating, too, is that, it wasn't like everybody's coming out swinging against this show. You have contestants on here where it did change their life. I mean, Joelle, who is used multiple times throughout the series, who has a real bone to pick with Bob Harper, rightfully so, and you have a great talking head of her going like, F you, Bob Harper, which was insanely powerful. But I did notice, wow, she is very thin. She is very thin from when we met her originally in the docuseries and on The Biggest Loser. And then you have all of these people that are doing audition video after audition video like it's American Idol or Saturday Night Live or something. And they're doing this because it's their dream, because they are told, or they have in their head, that this is like the final thing that will help piece their life together. So that's where like this emotional drive comes in. And to your point, I used to watch this show back in the day, I think with my parents, and I didn't question it. I was like, well, it's on TV. It must be okay, which is such a warped way of thinking, but like when you get into the research, then how long does that process take? And I know this is a little inside baseball, but were there a lot of dead ends? Were there a lot of people that didn't want to participate? Was everybody like, no, I totally want to speak about my experience?
The process can vary. On this one, we went through, a handful of different stages. And I think the real point where we realized like, oh, there's something amazing here. We knew from the beginning, but once we met the characters, and many of which ended up on the screen and interviewed with us, we realized that these people are incredible, and they're so emotional. You really can relate to them in such a profound way. They're so good at speaking about themselves and their experience and what they've been through. They're everyone, right? Like, everyone struggles with something. Not everyone struggles with their weight, but everyone has a body. Everyone knows what it feels like to be in a body and can imagine what it feels like to be in a body that maybe isn't the one they hope it would be. I think it's hard to imagine that every person feels fantastic in their body, and it's perfectly exactly what they want it to be. So I think once we found this incredible cast of subjects, of characters, of people and stories, these human stories, we just realized that, we could make 10 episodes with these people.
Well,
and there's so many more
to
people.
say that, I wanted more. I will tell you honestly, there were things where I was like, I want more. Like the gentleman with the beard who had gained his weight back, but to me, he looked really like healthy and happy, seemed like a really nice gentleman. I wanted to know more about his life now, and his family, and what his, because he talked about in the first episode, his son said, I've never seen you as a thin man, his young son. And I wanted to see what his son thinks now. I was like, God, I would have watched another 3 episodes of this. I mean, was that another conversation or even argument of how many episodes should and can this be?
Yeah, it's always a conversation. I think we want to, always find the most targeted and the sweetest spot for these stories. Danni Cahill, who you're talking about, is an incredible human being. He is, like truly inspirational in every way. And he does motivational speaking. So people can go find him and talk to and hear his story. He's like, the pleasure of interviewing him and everyone else, it's like you can just listen to these people endlessly.
But I will say this, just to talk shop a little bit, right? Which is, we're talking about the success that this series is, that it was number 1 for as long as it was, and now is still number 2 as many weeks in. And, you look at some of the other things that are on Netflix right now, Wednesday in particular, these are big budget projects that we're sort of like the little engine that could in this. But I think part of that is because we do try to figure out like what is the experience for the viewer and how can we, customize that for that? How can we make it the most enjoyable viewing experience? Certainly 3 episodes easily could have been 4 or 5 or 6 or 12, maybe. But this was, I think, the version that we thought would resonate, to use Lana's term, in the most focused and clear way. And the characters are great. The characters were great when they were on TV the first time, right? Like that's the cheat code here, is that these were people who were cast to be on network television years ago because they wanted to be on television. They're good storytellers. They're great characters. They know what it is to let an audience into what they are experiencing, how they are experiencing it. And that vulnerability, I think, is part of why our show has resonated.
It was great to see Bob Harper, who we just saw on The Traitors. It was who did great on The Traitors, but it was great to see him, and especially on the 3rd episode, you guys speak about his own heart incident that he went through, and he's like, I'm all of a sudden having to almost treat himself like somebody on The Biggest Loser about certain foods I can eat, and I thought, what an interesting wraparound to the overall story. But you also speak about things like the caffeine pills and the stackers and the Jillian Michaels of it all, which, were you surprised that Jillian Michaels had a lot to say last week in regards to this? Was that expected, or did that surprise you?
I don't think that we spent a lot of time focusing on the people who weren't in our show. You know what I mean? Like there were so many people who stepped forward. You mentioned Bob, the producers who were a part of it, and the contestants who came forward. Like that was really the universe of Fit for TV that we were dealing with. I think that, again, and the people who have responded to it and the people who, it's funny, like I say the word appetite, there is an appetite for more. Like these stories of people who have gone through something real and let an audience in and let an audience engage with them in that like human experience is, the gift of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think,
sorry, Lana, what? No, please.
You mentioned Bob and the producers, like everyone has a story in this. And I think that was something that was really important for us in telling it, is to let whoever wanted to participate be able to participate, as much as we can. We couldn't include, the hundreds of contestants that were a part of it, but to try and, show the nuance and tell the stories that, wanted to be told.
Were there things that blew you away when you got into this? Because we're talking about calorie deficits. We're talking about insane amount of time in the gym. I mean, we have one recounting of the first episode where they made all of these people run a mile to even be able to participate in the show. And this lady almost loses her life. She's in the hospital and Dr. Hazenga comes up to her and she still wants to participate. She still wants to participate. That's how much this meant to her. I mean, were there things that even stuck out to you, and you guys have had a career in television your whole life?
Well, it's a contemporary story, right? I mean, is there a day that goes by now in 2025 where people are not talking about weight loss methods and what's safe and what isn't safe, right? Like all these years later, it seems like we're still just going through the same, core questions. And the TV business continues to evolve, and we're obviously having these creative conversations, whether we're talking about weight loss shows or not, but we're having creative conversations about how to engage viewers, how to keep them engaged, how to, have them complete what we're making, or, whatever those conversations are. And so I can understand how creatively you put some people in a room, probably a lot of smart people, and those who I know are a lot of smart people, and say, okay, what should we come up with? And that pressure of, those two competing interests it's real. It's the tension that made that show work. It's the tension that makes our show work. It's the tension that will make the next show work, whoever makes it, and however they make it. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, that to your point, I feel like this is a docuseries about two things. It's about the showbiz element of it. Like you have that great quote from David Broom where he's looking for a show. He's at a gym. He sees a sign on a board from some like, I'm an overweight dude. I don't, I need help with my life. And he goes, that's a great show right there, which is, I think is such an interesting way for people that live in Los Angeles or work in the industry. That's sometimes our first thought over, even though it's humanity in some degrees of helping people, but there's a game show format, a reality show format around it. So it's this show then mixed with all of these people's actual lives. And did you ever find it hard to strike that balance in those tones? We are talking about our friends over at Factor today. Now, if you've been listening to the pod, you know that I am on a health journey right now, which means I am trying to eat healthier. And that is really hard to go out shopping and to do all of that busy work. And, you have a busy schedule. You have summer plans. And sometimes all you got is a couple minutes. So Factor helps me eat smarter with tasty chef-prepped meals that are dietitian approved and delivered right to my door. And now, with more than 65 weekly meals made for how I live and what I like to eat, I've got even more ways to fit in a real meal wherever the day takes me. So you get more variety, you get more meals, you can go to the website, you can choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. They support all of your wellness goals. Enjoy even more GLP-1 friendly meals and now new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good for you fats. And savor global favors. For the first time, try Asian inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. From more choices to better nutrition, that's why 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel the difference no matter your routine. So eat smart at factormeals.com/SoBad50off and use code SoBad50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Whoa, that's code SoBad50off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase.
I think we tried to, again, lead with what our subjects told us. So, you mentioned Dave Broom. He had this idea, and his guiding principle throughout it was to save people's lives. That's what he says a lot in our show. And then the people on, our contestants talk about being in front of the camera. So we just tried to present, what they shared with us in the most, compelling and accessible way possible.
But that is how Hollywood works, right?
Yeah.
You find something, hopefully, I would think at its best, you find something real that is going on in your life, and it sparks some bit of creativity where, other people can relate to this.
Yeah.
And this is a very universal thing. And so, Dave Broom saying, the very human, actually poignant moment of somebody posting on a bulletin board that they need help. That to me is quite pure, actually.
Yeah. No, I just found it a very interesting thing of, I can do a show around this of somebody needing help. And he did. To your point, everybody's obsessed with renovation shows. It's renovating your own self, which is one of the keys, obviously, of the Biggest Loser franchise. I was talking to a friend about this series because I said, wow, will they reboot The Biggest Loser now? I mean, it's hot. It's hot again. Biggest Loser, everybody's talking about it. And he's like, there's no way. You got GLP-1s now. And I was like, well, what if you factor in the GLP-1s? And then I started thinking like a weird producer. I'm like, we could really get them down really quick. But then we were talking about there would be so much hate directed at that show because there's an attention economy and a hate economy, and we don't want people just to hate watch. But then I was like, but that's still eyeballs. That's still like you would still create some sort of conversation. What is your opinion? Could The Biggest Loser ever be rebooted today?
Wow. I have been in this business long enough to never say never. And I also can recognize the value of IP, right? Like again, we've had great success over the last couple of weeks on a title that is piggybacking somebody else's show, and the value of that IP, the value of that title, clearly is great.
The nostalgia that we all have on top of something that, I mean, we want to learn more about, which is interesting. So when you guys see that and you guys still see, man, we are like top of the charts on a platform that has everything possibly you could ever imagine to watch, which is like, I was talking about that on yesterday's show. It's like a really big deal because I'll go on Netflix and I have no idea what to watch anymore. And so for you guys to be in that top 10 or with Wednesday, with the Hunting Wives, does it then make you kind of steer your efforts into more projects like this of like, okay, what about VH1 reality shows, Celebrity Fit Club, Celebrity Intervention? Like, do you start thinking in that way, or does it always still have to be somewhat organic?
I'm always a little stuck in the past. Lana knows me long enough to know that I just sit around talking about the 90s more than anyone should.
I work with you guys. My God, that's like my whole purpose in life. Yeah.
Well, and we have had a lot of success in that, right? So we talked about the Cosby doc that we did with Showtime years ago that obviously was of that time. We did a very different tone, but we did a doc, Pepsi Where's My Jet, for Netflix.
Oh, that was great, dude. Yeah.
And so that was a particular moment in time. The documentary Feature Val that we produced that's on Amazon Prime, like a lot of these, I think that's a common creative ingredient for us, that we like tapping into that nostalgia, Lana.
Yeah. And I think that, especially with this project, what resonates so much is just how meaningful the subject matter is to people. In every way, like across the spectrum, people just really care about this, not only the show of The Biggest Loser, but the experience of body image and weight loss, and that finding those kinds of shows that can really, speak to something bigger and speak to what people want to talk about and want to watch and engage with. I think that's where we try to find the real like sweet spot.
These people are still on their journey, right? Like when they show up on camera in our show, you realize like, oh, that's a real person with a real life who, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whenever it was, they did this thing and they're still living it. It still goes. It goes on and on and on, right? In some ways, what we do is like this moment in time and it lasts forever, right? But the people in it still go on and on and on. And I think that's what's really, really magnetic about this series.
Yeah, I was so drawn to this because I've had such personal weight issues myself throughout my entire life. And I would imagine a lot of people that watch this, will feel the same way. And so I remember watching that Biggest Loser and being like, oh man, if only I were in a game show or something, that would actually change everything. And the reality of that, you get to see with this docuseries is not all that it's cracked up to be. Like I remember like the Oprah books with Bob Greene. I mean, I had many times in my life, and I always thought what was interesting about this show too and the docuseries is that it's like on a time frame, and like the reality of like losing weight, if you're losing more than 1.5 pounds a week, that's a lot, and it's not almost healthy. And so now they're doing extreme workouts on top of a strict diet so they can do it quicker, and they can do it like, I remember people stepping on the scale and you have one moment with one of the ladies and it was only 7 pounds. And I was like, boo. I want 21. Like that. It's so weird. We're not even thinking as human beings anymore. We're thinking about like these numbers. And it was so personal to watch this for some reason, but it's so hard to break out of that thought pattern of like, it needs to be in a week. I need to lose all the weight in a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people, I think, you said it earlier, they just crave transformation and we want to watch it. We want to be a part of the journey and we want to watch it happen before our eyes. And that is seeing a number change, go from high to low. It's
so simple, but that's like a big, like we're like, wow, that's a big number.
We could do an emotional transformation show where instead of the gym, people have to go to therapy, but there's no digital, right? Sorry,
couples therapy,
right? But there's no
There's
no digital tally at the end to sort of cheer for or put your hands in the air
Yeah, you're
my own
18% less insane this week. You win the biggest therapy.
If you find that meter, then I'm in.
Yeah.
The biggest therapy is a good
Biggest
title.
therapy. Well, I sometimes think with all the reality stars out there, man, there's got to be a rehab for reality stars where you just teach them to live without a camera, but then it's screwed because you're like, I want to do that on camera. It's so weird. In your careers, what have you guys noticed? Because you're looking at a piece that is involving humans, but it's also a piece of pop culture. What have you noticed since the 90s? Since I know, especially Andrew is into the 90s. I don't know if you have to pretend you are, Lana, but Andrew is. What have you noticed in terms of pop culture and how the world has changed? Because social media didn't exist in the way it did now that, when Biggest Loser came out. What have you guys noticed being like kind of having perspective on some of this now?
It's just so fast.
Yeah.
Right? Like there were viral things back then. Like there definitely were things that caught on when I was in high school and college, and I'm at a deficit for it now. But like there were things, right? If you drink Pop Rocks and Coca-Cola at the same time, you're gonna explode, right? It's gonna explode inside your stomach. That was viral when we were kids. Lana's a lot younger than I am, but that was viral when we were kids, right? There was no social media, and so it took years. The virality of that took years for the kids in California to learn the same thing that the kids in New York had heard, right? Like years. Now it happens in 3 hours, and it's done by dinner time, and you're on to the next. And so I just think the speed is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lana, is there any stories today where you're like, I mean, because you're right, everything moves so quick and, people get outraged immediately and then the next day they move on to something else. Is there any current stories that you could like see frozen in amber? I feel like we miss so much because there is so much. It's like The Biggest Loser. You have this, it's almost great that you get to look back decades and see how that's changed people. But I always wonder the times that we live in now, what's actually important in the times that we live in? And are we just looking back at all of these memories that we have? Because your docuseries, I think, proves that we could go back and find amazing human stories out of each one of these shows that we fell in love with as kids.
Yeah. I mean, I think time gives us perspective. And I think that's what makes looking back at, whether it's the 90s or the 2000s or, even further back, that's what makes it sort of meaningful. Like we're experiencing it in the moment, and that carries a lot of meaning. But to be able to look back and examine like where culture was and the way we thought about things, the conversations that we had, and bringing that, with the perspective of today, I think that's a huge part of this, right? That's what makes it so, part of what makes it so compelling to watch is the perspective that we have now.
Yeah.
But what is today that like will resonate in 15 years and worthy of a docuseries? It's hard. I think it's hard to know in the moment, but
or it goes super meta and we have a docuseries of the docuseries. I have a docuseries of The Biggest Loser, 3-part docuseries. Like, I don't know how far down the rabbit hole we go with these things, but I will say, man, there is an audience for this. Listen, I have you for a couple more minutes here, but I wanted to talk about what you were the most surprised about in the course of filming this. Was there an interview that stood out? Was there something that somebody said that was so unexpected that didn't show up in your initial research?
I think that's a great question. There are so many moments, but I do think what you mentioned, Tracy, who's one of our contestants and one of our incredible characters. When I first heard her story, which was before we sat down in front of the camera and just a conversation between her, myself, and our showrunner Mike Gasparo, I couldn't. Like what you said, that she wanted to go back to change her life because she was so desperate to change her life. And that was what The Biggest Loser provided for her. That, I think, was probably the most surprising thing.
Oh, I was surprised as
all of it.
when she said she wanted it, I was like, wait, she's hooked up to tubes right now. And she's still, and she says she can still feel the grit of the sand in her fingertips from the running this mile. And I just thought, man, if that is not human spirit, and we all want to be told what to do, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So there's so much psychology that's wrapped up in that whole story.
And how strong she was. I mean, she was, a mother, a stay-at-home mom, and which is probably one of the hardest jobs, but she was just so motivated, so desperate. Nothing was going to get in her way. And she's such an incredible person that I think that just surprised me in how inspiring, even though of what she had been through and what she had ahead of her. I couldn't believe that she went back. I expected her to say, hell no, get me out of here.
Yeah, I'm in tubes right now. Like, are you kidding me? Andrew, what was it for you?
I think it's just, I don't know that I had a ton of surprises along the way. I think my greatest surprise, honestly, is the resonance that it has with audiences today. Like, I really thought our team had done a wonderful job telling this story. I loved the characters. I felt really great about the product that we were putting on the screen, but it's such a noisy, crowded landscape. There's so much going on and so much draws for our attention that I think my greatest surprise of the whole thing is just the resonance that it has and the response that it's had and that it is still so meaningful. It's like, just good storytelling is good storytelling. And I think, and great characters are great characters.
Yeah. I mean, just for the audience, if you guys have seen this or you're going to watch it, the other thing that surprised me that was pointed out, I think Danny Cahill pointed this out, was, they do this whole thing and get you like on this program and stuff like that. But then after the show, in some ways, you're left in the boonies. There's not a lot of aftercare or mental health care. And I thought that was such an important thing, too. Like, if they could do this all over again, I would think that would, because even shows like Love Island now, they have aftercare in terms of like mental health care, things like that. And I thought, is that just the time that we were living in? But I thought that was a little interesting point as well. And I'm wondering if they would do it differently nowadays.
Something we've learned over time, for sure, is the power of these platforms and just how famous people get when they're on these shows. And so I do think there's a level of responsibility that we've all of us who do any types of shows like these, I think we all understand it differently now. So yeah, if you were going to do a show like that today, it would have a very different, I think, onboarding and off-ramping of the people whose lives are affected by participating in it, for sure.
Yeah, we have a different relationship with mental health care today than we did in the 90s, which I think is a great thing. Okay, as we wind down here, because we're all fans of pop culture, be honest with me. What is the last thing that you guys watched? Or what are you watching now besides the hit docuseries Fit for TV, which you can stream right now on Netflix? What are you watching? What's on your DVRs?
I'll go because it looks like you're thinking. There's a Diana Taurasi doc on Prime Video that is wonderful. That's a filmmaker that we've worked with before and who we know very well. We did not produce that series, but it's great. And so that's what I'm watching with my daughter.
I watched that too. The last thing that I watched was, I can't remember, but it was an animated movie about penguins. I'm on Netflix, of course, where all of my is enjoyed. But I'm really inspired by Happy Gilmore 2. I've been going down sort of like that nostalgia rabbit hole of 2000s, 90s comedies, and I'm really enjoying that.
We did watch 50 First Dates. My daughter had a slumber party this weekend, and 50 First Dates. I wasn't really allowed to watch it with them.
You were
but 50 First Dates was on the screen, and so I'll take a little credit with that.
I did Big Daddy recently. I think it's Adam.
Oh my God, Big Daddy! Adam Sandler had that initial run of movies: Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, Big Daddy, which was insane. What about the docuseries format or documentaries in general? Why do you both this is your life. This is your business. What speaks to you? Why is this the best format out there? Because I've always loved them, but now I feel like there are more places for these places to land, like Netflix and things of that nature. What's it mean to you?
I would say I got into documentary to try and, tell human stories and shed light on people maybe wouldn't have the opportunity to tell their stories. So this Fit for TV is like, a dream come true.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always thought that, there's, I guess the expression truth is stranger than fiction, but I just think truth is better than fiction. Like the way I watch things and the way I like to tell things, like I sort of like the limitations of what actually happened and how do we tell that story in the best way. It's honest, right? We work with a filmmaker, Greg Whiteley, who does America's Sweethearts and a whole lot of series with
That's
us.
the Dallas Cowboys thing, you guys. They just had the second season. It's really, really good.
I would agree with you, and I appreciate that. But he says, that we put a lens on people's real lives, and it's better than anything that you could write. And I think that's true. I think that's true.
Yeah. The late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman said, like, when I was telling the audience, he's like, man, you go to down in the subway and you just sit across from somebody, that's going to be better than any movie that you could write. Just trust me. We are all going through something. And I think this docuseries shows, like I said, it works on both levels, the showbiz level and the human level, which is what great reality competition series does in the first place. So this peek behind the curtain, I think you guys are going to freak out as pop culture lovers. You probably have already seen it, or you might have a interesting relationship with your bodies like we all do. But I would say watch it, see for yourself, be part of the conversation. And I will tell you, and this is complimentary to both of you, is that when I go into these kind of interviews, what I'm always surprised with you guys, it feels like you have very big hearts and you're very empathetic. And sometimes, even in my mind, watching so many reality shows and docuseries, you're like, okay, they're just looking to get that pull quote. They're looking to get, they're looking to potentially embarrass. Not that that's what you did here, but talking to you guys, it almost is comforting because it seems like, oh, wow, like you guys have real hearts. And I don't mean to sound demeaning when I say that, but it's really nice.
Thank you. That's the best compliment I could get.
Yeah, we're just trying to tell great
Andrew's
stories.
like, screw you, buddy.
No. It's funny. Like, we don't get to make shows with the other people, right? We make shows with the people we make shows with, and this is how we approach it, right? Whether it's the people who work at our company or the people who we partner with, like, it seems obvious to us that we're always just trying to tell the most meaningful. These things last forever, right? It's not like the show's coming out on Thursday, and if you missed it, you'll see it in reruns this summer. Like, these are content catalogs, and so we have to take that responsibility seriously. It's also our lives. It's how we wake up in the morning, we stress about this stuff until we go to sleep at night. That's assuming we don't wake up in the middle of the night with like thought that we need to write on our nightstand. And so, yeah, it should have some meaning, and yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that we're approaching it in the right way, because it's honestly,
it's really nice to hear from the creatives. So what else is coming up for Boardwalk? What's on the agenda in the future? Because I know one project I'm really excited about that I already talked about, but what else? Can you tease anything coming up?
Well, there are lots of things that we're always working on. We just announced season 3 of America's Sweethearts, which is our Dallas Cowboy cheerleader series. And so we're actively in production on that. AKA Charlie Sheen comes out on Netflix September 10th.
I'm really looking forward to that. I've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks. That the audience doesn't remember. You guys have you're very forgetful sometimes. This guy has a story.
Yeah, we are very excited about that one. And, I say hopefully not in a self-congratulatory way, but we're up for Emmy Awards for 3 of our series from last season. And so Welcome to Wrexham and America's Sweethearts and Chef's Table. We have a big few weeks ahead for those series, and so that's exciting for us.
Welcome to Wrexham, if not mistaken, won an Emmy already, correct?
Well, Welcome to Wrexham has won the last 2 years for outstanding unstructured reality series, and so We're up a third year for that and up against America's Sweethearts. So it's a lot of drama in the hallways of Boardwalk Pictures for next.
You're up against yourself. Well, hopefully, regardless of who wins, that you will win, and that's a team effort. But congratulations. I think this is a fascinating piece of work. I highly recommend it, as most of your projects I will recommend. Thank you for spending so much time with us today. Is there anything else you would like to leave us with?
No, just gratitude.
Yeah.
Lana?
No, thank you so much for having us, and thanks for asking these questions.
Andrew and Lana, I appreciate it, you guys. Once again, Fit for TV, The Reality of the Biggest Loser is in your Netflix home screen right now. Just add it and then watch it, okay? We'll talk to you next time.